The Hyperborean Epoch is the second epoch of the Earth, or the second expression of life for the Earth. In this period, the Earth is still not physical, but is a slightly more dense etheric form. The Hyperborean Epoch is defined by its most significant event, the separation of the Sun, of our Sun, from the nebulous mass that slowly formed in the Polarian Epoch. In other words, the Earth and all kingdoms of life as we know it were united with the Sun until the Hyperborean stage. And during the Hyperborean stage, the body that is the Sun separated from the Earth and began beaming downwards onto the Earth. Why did the Sun separate from the Earth in the Hyperborean Epoch? Well, by the Hyperborean Epoch, the Earth had already gone through an entire cycle of development and had been patterned with all the seeds and impulses of life from the higher realms or the spiritual hierarchies. This process was discussed at length in our last series on the Polarian Epoch. Thus, by the time the Earth reaches the Hyperborean Epoch, it is ready to cast off the most highly developed consciousness it has developed thus far. Thus, the highly developed mass of consciousness is our Sun. The Sun, which is comprised of the ascended forces of the Earth, thus far can be seen as consisting of highly evolved beings called Sun Spirits or Solar Petries or Solar Fathers. These are the beings that embody the logos and power of the Sun. The greatest of all, the Sun Spirits or Solar Fathers, is the being we know as the Christ. Thus we can observe that the Hyperborean Epoch is significant because the Solar Fathers, those who embody the Solar Logos directly, ascended during the Hyperborean Epoch and then began beaming their consciousness downward to the Earth. This first opposite pulling of directions of the higher solar forces separating from the denser, still developing earthly forces is also represented by the astrological sign Pisces, the fishes. In the sign Pisces, the fish are swimming away from one another, just like how the Sun and the Earth were polarized away from each other in this Hyperborean Epoch. Thus, one of the early symbols of the Hyperborean stage is the fish, and, of course, the fish represents Christ, the highest solar spirit. The souls that separated from the Earth and entered the Sun are known in the Eastern mysteries as Agni Shavatas or Mana Saputras or Kumaras. In Theosophy, these souls are called the Solar Petries or the Solar Fathers. This is a direct reference to the Father in esoteric Christianity or the Solar Logos in Gnosticism. These are the spirits of the Father, the divine holders of the Logos. Traditionally, there are 7 great solar spirits, and they can be seen as the sons of the Sun, or the personalities of the Sun. They are direct expressions of the Sun or the Father. In anthroposophy, they are known as spirits of light, Elohim, or the sons of the Sun. These higher souls evolved faster in the Hyperborean age and ascended with the Sun as it separated from the Earth. From the Sun, these great spirits worked upon humanity and the Earth, beaming their consciousness downward, creating a powerful evolutionary impulse, the Christ impulse. Keep in mind that the Sun is not separate from the Earth. The Sun is a higher embodiment of the Earth. It is made of the same substance and directly linked in consciousness. In this way, the solar Christ stream can also be seen as a force of regeneration, preservation, and evolution. In the Christian mysteries, the solar spirit embodied by Jesus gives humanity the capacity to regenerate oneself or resurrect. This is the highest solar mystery. Now that we understand the significance of this epoch in human and earthly evolution, let's get into what the Earth was like at this time. The planet was in a state of eternal spring, and the developing human forms were located in the North Pole, which was tropical. Remember that the Earth is still in an astral etheric form and not yet physical. With the separation of the Sun, we gained our first experience of polarity or duality. This manifested as the first experience of day and night and light and dark, which lasted much longer than today. Thus, before the Hyperborean Epoch, there was no division of dark and light, and there was no day nor night. Instead, humanity germinated, stirred, and received the impulses in a dreamlike Saturnian glow. In the Hyperborean Epoch of our Earth, humanity functioned more like a plant and reproduced through budding like a bacteria. We were more beast-like with characteristics of both plants and animals and could feel temperature shifts. Our form was not yet defined, and we were not yet capable of self-consciousness and wandered the earth in a more dreamlike state. We weren't fully comprehending our experience yet. In the early phases of the Hyperborean Epoch, humanity was still air-like, but as the sun separated from the earth, human beings densified into a more watery or plasma-like etheric form. If you remember, during the first epoch of creation, human beings experienced the word, or sound vibrations, and in the second Hyperborean epoch, humans first developed the sense of touch, and later on, the beginnings of sight. Though it should be noted that this first kind of sight was an astral sight, not physical as we know our sight today. And the eye that was developed is the organ within our brain called the third eye, or the pineal gland. So now that there was the outer light of the sun in the cosmos, human beings began to develop the first experience of sight, or organs for perceiving light. And the higher divine human kingdoms worked upon and within developing humanity, allowing the human form to develop organs necessary for evolution. As mentioned, during this epoch, the solar spirits or solar fathers ensouled into these bodies, transforming them completely, including giving them an upright posture or the first rudiments of a spine. As mentioned in prior lectures, each developmental phase of humanity reaches a point of ensoulment, or a point where an order of the angelic hierarchy directly enters or incarnates into the form. In this way, the human form is always an extension of, or an eventual vehicle for, the spiritual hierarchies. In this case, divine beings began incarnating into the developing forms in Hyperborea, which began lifting the consciousness up out of the lower kingdoms of life. This led to some consciousnesses beginning to rise and divide themselves out of the animal and plant kingdoms. During the Hyperborean Epoch, a new element was added to the reproduction process. Humanity began to reproduce involving an external element of fertilization. In comparison, the Polarian Epoch, reproduction stemmed exclusively from an internal spiritual process, similar to the concept of miraculous conception. However, in the Hyperborean Epoch, the idea of an external source of information is added. In Anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner describes it this way: fertilization was not of a sexual kind, but carried out by the whole astral atmosphere. If a, quote, tentacle stretched down, it meant fertilization of the human being. In this case, the tentacle is behaving as a sperm would. Humanity is the egg, or the receiving component of this astral impulse. The tentacle, or lightning, or sperm is providing a masculine evolutionary principle for the first time. Interestingly, during this epoch, some forms became infertile and these forms would eventually evolve to become the first male bodies in later epochs. Helena Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society, was the first to coin this epoch of civilization with the name Hyperborea in her work, The Secret Doctrine. She described the Hyperborean humans as the boneless, describing their astral and etheric nature, the reality that they were not yet physical and they did not yet have bones or a hardened mineral element to their form. These ethereal human forms were gigantic and not yet self-aware. Because Hyperborean humans produce through budding, a similar process to bacteria, she called them the sweatborn. Manly P. Hall described Hyperborean humanity in this way. These are the children of the golden father and the white mother. They were rough globes of golden yellow color. The pineal gland served as a medium of impression. These creatures had two senses, hearing, which was more highly developed than in the first race, and feeling, which was slightly developed. The early half of this race multiplied like cells by fission, but the element of growth was introduced. The later species of this race multiplied by swelling and budding somewhat like trees. The last of this race were called the sweatborn, and they were first to show any sexual nature. Like the previous race, they were destroyed collectively by the gods. They still lived in the Sun Nebula and were connected by the magnetic cord in a recapitulation of the moon chain. They had very little consciousness of any kind and were subject to the cosmic urge, and they were known as the Hyperborean species. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please don't forget to give this video a like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with your friends and family. I'm also completely supported by my viewers, so if you benefit from my work, please consider making a donation or signing up for my membership. Thank you.